All right, so welcome to the 1950s, girly. So this was the generation some of our grandparents grew up in and some of our parents were born in now, okay? So right off the bat in 1952, Princess Elizabeth became Queen Elizabeth II. Dwight Eisenhower became president, and he remained president during majority of this era. While we had a great boom, culturally, Americans were living it with anxiety and just creating hysteria overall because of the war. With that in mind, we have Huac, right? The House of, I hate the stupid name. I always forget it. Huac, the House of Un-American Activities Committee. Oh my God. So this is where the heightened of the heightened fear of communism comes in, right? Because, you know, Huac was out here exposing actors in Hollywood to be communists, right? And because of so, people would literally be blacklisted from being in films. Also, right smack dab in the middle of the 1950s, we have the height of the civil rights movement. We also have the Vietnam War, which happened, and also Marilyn Monroe met Queen Elizabeth II. You know, this happened then. And speaking of, like, you know, Hollywood stars and Hollywood stuff, film, right? So Blackboard Jungle made history as the first film to feature a rock and roll song. And also the French New Wave also happened. All right, and you're probably thinking to yourself, so where's the queer films? Where is queer film at in the moment? Where are we? Where are queer people who work in Hollywood? What is happening? You know, what how can we tell our stories in mainstream movies, and where are we finding the representation in mainstream movies when these mainstream movies aren't really catered to queer people? And I feel as if, you know, the answer to that lies into two key movies here, right? One of them being Rebel Without a Cause, and the other one being All That Heaven Allows. Allow me to explain. So, Rebel Without a Cause, in case you don't have eyes, is very queer-coded. It is so queer-coded, gay-coded, the homoeroticism, not homoerotic, the tension between James Dean and Salminio? Fuck it, I don't remember how to say his name. Anyways, his character, right, is absolutely in love with James Dean, right? And not only that, his character is named after a philosopher who, you know, is gay. And we also have, you know, spoiler warning, his character dies as well. So we also have the entire bury your gays trope alive and well in this movie. Also on top of that, Salminio, I hope I'm saying his last name right, you know, is playing this character, and he is bisexual. And not only that, James Dean, he himself said that he's not going through life with one hand tied behind my back, and that is a quote, right? And that's literally code for I will fuck anything with a hole. That's literally what that is. You can't sit there and tell me I'm wrong. With that in mind, you can definitely sense and see the tension and chemistry between James Dean and the other actors. And it is cute seeing that nice twinkle in their eyes, because, you know, James Dean's is, you know, it's everybody's man, you know, so my eyes will be twinkling too. And that's one of the most things that's charming about this film, is just seeing the tension, and you sense that the tension is thick, and you can cut it with a knife. There's also the chosen family trope. What do I call it trope? I don't know. I don't like the word trope. Anyways, it's the chosen family trope, which is pretty apparent in this film. And regardless of queerness or not, a lot of people are able to relate to it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this movie was also, you know, trying to target the Beat generation, which their whole entire thing was the rejection from society, from, you know, post World War, and what should have been normal, right? The white picket fence and all that, right? So they wanted to reject all that. And that was the entire, you know, the whole entire thing in Rebel Without a Cause, because he's a rebel without any cause. And much like in this movie, we see cliques of people, and that, you know, was American life then. A lot of cliques of people going to the people's parties or whatever, a gathering, and that's what it was. And so, the clique you hang around with, the friends you made really strong relationships with and bonds with, they sort of became your family, and that was who this movie was targeting, was this demographic of people. And eventually, as time progresses, with these cliques of people, they've made their own subcultures, disco and punk being an absolute rejection of what was normal and set up by the previous generation. You understand where I'm going with this? And so it's with the queer people in Hollywood, putting in these queer themes in films for us to see and feel some type of relatability. And through this relatability and these queer themes, we have All That Heaven Allows, directed by Douglas Sirk, and it came out right smack dab in the middle of the 1950s. It came out in 1955. The very main, theme in All That Heaven Allows is the forbidden love trope, because, it was the forbidden love between a younger man and an older woman, right? And there's also the infamous Rock Hudson, right? Who's playing the main love interest, and he was, every woman's like fantasy man, he was the man. He's like the Chris Evans almost, right? So he had a very dedicated fan base, which was the mom at home, right? Who watched her little soap operas on the TV while the husband went home. This was, again, the American life that was happening then, right? So all the women love Rock Hudson. They would bend over for Rock Hudson, but what they didn't know was that Rock Hudson was bending it over to other men in the bookstores. Yes, in case you did not know, Rock Hudson is a gay man, and unfortunately had to live a life of lie, right? Majority of his life, because again, we were still very anti-gay. Also, just to sprinkle it with some sprinkles here, this film is very campy, and we'll get into specifically what is camp and camp films in another video, but for now I'll just mention that the origins of the term camp comes from France's gay community, and it's a slang term, which I'm probably going to butcher it if I pronounce it, but regardless, it means to pose in a exaggerated fashion. So something that is campy needs to be exaggerated, but we'll get really into that in a different video. And the story in All That Heaven Allows is very camp. It's an exaggerated melodrama, the melodrama being the forbidden love between an older woman and a younger man. And that is the prevalent theme in All That Heaven Allows, was this forbidden love trope that gay people and queer people found extremely relatable. So it's very clear that this is the most, queer people and gay people in Hollywood could have done for mainstream movies. We were the very core of Hollywood and the foundations, but we couldn't be shown on camera. So we found the relatability in Rebel Without a Cause and All That Heaven Allows. So then when we get into the 60s, we start seeing that first crack of what would eventually lead up to the queer liberation movement of the 70s. Right? So we still have the 60s to go through, but we got to see that crack, that initial, what is going on, what happened right before the queer liberation movement. So if you want to know more about that, make sure you guys comment, and follow. And have you seen All That Heaven Allows? Have you seen Rebel Without a Cause? Did you find them relatable in any type of way? Let me know in the comments. Also, let me know what you guys think of my new character's look. I wanted something a little bit more simpler, a little bit something easier to animate, and I was like, let me start from scratch, because I was trying to go way overboard with the previous, character design, and I wanted more expression, I wanted more body in there, so I feel like I definitely got it done with this. And the background is a little bit different because I had to redesign the galaxies and stuff, but I'm sorry it took a while. Is mental health and all that stuff. With that being said, I will see you all when I talk about queer film history of the 1960s.